What's going on, everybody? This Afro Think Tank. Black woman says that we need to read about more black revolutionaries in the past so we can basically understand what it is that we need to do in the future, right? Because the thing is, right now, as social media and the age of information is starting to come to its fruition, starting to blossom, people who are just now being introduced to real politics, they only see two sides. They see Democrat, they see Republican, right? They hear on the Democrat side, all they hear is general terms like liberal, left-leaning. On the right side, you hear general terms like conservative, right-leaning. But the thing is, those two political ideologies represent many different political ideologies and many different structures of governance, many different structures and formations of people groups to organize society, right? And we've also been inundated with propaganda about Marxism, about communism, about liberalism, about conservative, about liberalism, conservatism, communism, socialism, all those things, right? And a lot of us, we actually don't understand. No, well, I do, but a lot of people don't understand the difference between a communist, right, and a socialist. They think that communism and socialism are the same things, even though they're not. Even though some of their ideologies and some of the way they operate are interchangeable. Like each organization of government has things that are similar to other organizations of government, just with slightly different mechanisms and whatnot, right? And so I think at this point, even though Western society has made it cool to say socialism is weak and it's a failure and it doesn't work, but our governors, our mayors, and all of our politicians enjoy socialism as a perk for working for the government, and it is a incentive for them to continue to throw the peasants, the true people, under the bus in order for them to maintain their cushy lives under the socialistic program that is our government, right? They get their free healthcare, their benefits, they get all things taken care of. They get increases and raises and allowances and all things that we, the people, provide for them as them being government employees, right? That supposedly work for us, but you can't really tell, right? They enjoy socialism, but the propaganda says socialism doesn't work because only the rich and well-to-do want to have socialistic benefits for themselves, and they want everybody else to be workers for them. They want them to be the cogs in the machines that they create, right? And you got communism. Like you look at China and you see how they operate, as their citizens are not exactly citizens but subjects, but they have their own form of neglect of their own people in communism. But they have communism mixed with a little bit of capitalism. Capitalism is most definitely involved in enriching communistic people, because capitalism is the pursuit of capital, more money, greed, money over everything, money over your family, money over civility, money over morals, money over lives, money over happiness, money over everything. That's what capitalism is, right? So we can safely assume that all the systems in which human beings have created so far, the flaw in that system is the greed of humanity, is of humanity incapability of being fair and honest in all its doings, right? Officially, it's the weakness of men that create structures that overall what sounds good structurally but doesn't operate, in practice, right? But America itself is a combination of capitalism and socialism, right? As all the social programs, i.e. the fire department, the police department, right, various public services, those are socialistic programs that we all benefit from. And if we didn't have those things, life would be much harder for us in America, right? So there's a balance. There could be a little bit of capitalism, a little bit of capitalism for the pursuit, of riches and happiness, a little bit of socialism so that we can have some safety nets to take care of people on the basic level, right? Communism, find out what are the benefits of communism, organized structure in government, right? Do we need a parliament? Should we go from being a republic, should we have a parliamentary style system? How can we make? Can we do? Should we get rid of the electoral college and just have a popular vote? There's all different manners of structuring society, but we need to figure out a better way. Because right now, what we're doing is not working. Even though we're telling everybody else, what they're doing is not working. Right? Nobody right now, as it stands, nobody on the planet has the perfect system, but we do have perfect elements within all the imperfect systems in order to make a better life. And we know how to do it. I'm gonna keep saying Star Trek. So it's not like human beings has not come up with the concept of creating a more fair and just society that's built off the abundance that we actually have, and not the scarcity that's manufactured by the rich people who want to enjoy the abundance for themselves while maintaining the scarcity of the majority of the population in order to motivate them to work for the rich people. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So this woman is cooking. She's cooking with hot grease, peanut grease, and let's listen to what she got to say. And tell me what you guys think in the comment section. Do you think that we need to radically overhaul our political system and our governmental structure and how we set things up? Because we got to do it. This complacency that we got going on right now and these slight movements, no, we need dramatic historical change. And it's time for us, the regular people who are truly in charge once we realize it, to push forward for that change that we want. Anyway, tell me what you guys think in the comment sections. Afro Think Tank, learn something, teach something. I'm out.
Hi, my pukas. I have a message for you. You need to read more Black revolutionaries. Let me explain. Recently, I made a video about the Black Panther Party and how they understood the lumpen proletariat, and I got a couple of comments about people telling me that I was misunderstanding this, when in reality, Marx and Black revolutionaries completely looked at the lumpen proletariat in different ways. And this is why you need to diversify your theory, diversify your sources. Let's break it down together. Under classical Marxism, the lumpen proletariat is assumed to be those outside of what's called the formal economy. So this includes outlaws, hustlers, drifters, sex workers, and Marx quite literally called these people social scum and social refuse, which is another word for waste. He felt like the lumpen proletariat were truly a group with no revolutionary potential and that they were politically unreliable, that they're just reactionary. But here's one thing that you need to know. That definition only makes sense in Marx's world, in his political context, his economic context. What happens though when we try to look at political theories and apply them to the context of other people, perhaps black people? Well, black writers and anti colonial thinkers, they had to stretch this definition, revise it so that it would better fit their context. You see, the classical definition didn't make room for racism, colonialism, or the forced exclusion of black people from legitimate labor. While Marx called this group politically useless and criminal, the reality is that in societies shaped by things like Jim Crow, for example, our marginality is not a moral failing. It is the result of structural exploitation, historical exploitation. With this in mind, writers like Richard Wright, Ralph Ellison, Margaret Walker, Frantz Fanon, and even the Black Panther Party, they understood that the people who were at the margins had the most revolutionary potential because they most clearly understood the system's violence, and therefore they could be its most radical challengers. So, once again, stretching or revising this definition from classical Marxism was absolutely necessary because classical Marxism could not properly explain the realities of Black life under racial capitalism or colonial domination. For example, through the writings of Richard Wright, we begin to see that sometimes the most revolutionary energy does not come from industrial workers, but instead marginalized Black people whose hunger to be noticed as human becomes a political force. Through his characters like Bigger Thomas, we begin to understand that the outlaws' desperate, misrecognized actions are actually revolutionary desire for visibility that the existing racial capitalist system does not allow. Ralph Ellison, he combined the idea of the lumpen proletariat with this idea of black folk creativity to show that people living at the margins often see things that other people can't because they've got like this outsider, external perspective. Through Ellison's writings, we begin to understand that Black life is actually quite fluid and constantly changing, and it's in these cracks that Ellison felt the most revolutionary possibilities existed. He felt that Black people who were moving through these different social spaces had a better idea of how to identify the contradictions that the rigid categories of Marxism often fail to capture. And then there was Margaret Walker, who radically reworked Marxism by placing sex workers front and center of her revolutionary theory. She argued that their position was not the product of a moral failing, but instead was the product of racism, capitalism, and the patriarchy. In Walker's poetry and fiction, she reframes sex workers as modern exploited laborers whose pursuit of pleasure, freedom, and survival, often outside of the constraints of wage labor, reveals a far more radical and future oriented critique of capitalism than the traditional proletariat ever could. And then that brings us to the great Frantz Fanon. Frantz Fanon radically reworked the idea of the lumpen proletariat because he argued that in colonial societies, the very people that Marx called social scum actually had the most revolutionary potential because they were the most dispossessed, uprooted, and structurally excluded through colonial violence. For Fanon, the colonized lumpen proletariat became the spearhead of anti colonial revolt, showing that Marxism can in fact be stretched to include context of colonial domination. Emphasis on stretched, though. So then that brings us to the video I made the other day about how the Black Panther Party viewed the lumpen proletariat. They synthesized everything that we've discussed today. So, when Black revolutionaries or Black theorists are talking about the lumpen proletariat in a way that might seem a bit different from classical Marxism, we're not misusing the term. We're using it in the way that our thinkers defined it, because the reality is that theory must be stretched in order to be applied to different colonial, racial, and economic realities. So, I urge you to question yourself. Whose theory are you reading? Whose Marxism do you deem valid and why? Whose context? Whose reality? White leftists, if your theory, if your knowledge starts and stops in Europe, not only are you missing out on so much, but you're also reinforcing epistemic racism. Epistemic racism refers to the ways in which often subconscious racist beliefs shape what knowledge we view as valuable, as worthy, who has the authority to be a knower. If you want to learn more about epistemic justice, I definitely suggest that you check out the work of Miranda Fricker, which I mention quite often when I'm talking about mad studies, but that's for another video. To conclude, I urge you to diversify your theory, and remember, theory is not static, it transforms to meet the people. Toodles!
Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan!
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's Pan-Africanism or nothing.